Yo, what's up YouTube? Welcome back to another Hype Pseudo Dragonheir video. Today we have the final boss for Season 3. I'm here on the test server. Apparently I'm going to be a little late to this. There are some people having the final boss show up on their server today. So I'm trying to get this video out as soon as possible to help you guys out. But we're going to go over the boss mechanics, and then I'm going to showcase a few teams that I came up with that were pretty budget, that were okay. This is a boss that is definitely 200 million is achievable on this boss, but this is harder than previous seasons. This is not a boss that you're going to be getting, 200 million teams consistently. You're probably going to have some teams under that, and then like one or two teams that are really, really good that can maybe reach the 200 million. So keep that in mind to kind of adjust your expectations here. So starting off, let's go over the mechanics of the boss. So this is Abysolossus. And he has a lot of passives. So the first one that's important is he gets damage reduction, a 5% damage reduction whenever you use a skill on the boss. Now this is unavoidable. You're going to be using battle skills, which you cannot time. So he's going to be gaining these damage reduction stacks. And then when you're ulting, you're going to be also giving him damage reduction. It's kind of unavoidable, but 5% isn't so bad, so it's kind of ignorable. Like, this is just going to be part of the fight, and it's kind of unavoidable. You can't remove this, I don't think, so it's just there. But I guess there is some planning you can do about when you ult. So the way this damage reduction works is every time he uses a skill, he goes back to 0 stacks. So if within the window of him using 2 skills, if you use all your ults all at the same time, the boss is going to get like 3, 4, 5 stacks of this damage reduction. But if you kind of spread out your ults, use one here, one here, one here, one here, like that, in between his abilities, you're going to be putting less stacks of the damage reduction on him. But that's irrelevant, as we'll get to later. You're going to want to be using a lot of your ults after he ults, but I'll explain that later. So next we have this Rust Poison. This is a debuff he puts on you that, again, is pretty much unavoidable. And this goes up to 20 stacks. Once it reaches 20 stacks, it's going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to increase in damage by 25% for each subsequent time it reaches 20 stacks. So this is basically like a ramping damage mechanic that'll do more and more damage to you over the course of the fight. By the end of the fight, this will hit you really hard. But we got some solutions for survival. I got a few really budget 2 support setups that can get you all the way to the 8 minutes. So another thing that you don't really need to worry about if you have the right supports to keep you alive. Next, we got, control immunity and ultimate down immunity. So you cannot manipulate his turn meter. You can't knock it back. You can't use recharge speed penalty on him. He's always going to have a 30-second turn, and you're just going to have to time your team to, follow those 30 seconds. So his first ability, very generic, damages all enemies. This is just a big AoE, unavoidable. Everyone's going to get hit. So this is a boss where most of his abilities are all AoE. So you're going to want to have some kind of damage share set on a tank. You're going to want to have buffs, damage reduction, attack penalty, stuff that keeps your squishies alive. Moving on, we have his next ability. This one's pretty lethal. This one is applying a defense penalty. You can cleanse this. You can try to put up shields, attack penalty, defense up, some kind of protective buffs during this period so you take less damage. Or you could just remove this buff if you have remove this with a cleanser if you have a cleanser. Or you can block it with a buff blocker. Someone has debuff immunity. Moving on, he puts up a lot of debuffs, as you'll see. He puts another debuff up, buff prohibition here, and this attack is really nasty because not only does it give you buff prohibition, but he hits you twice, each time dispelling a buff. So if you have like 2 buffs, well, now you have 0, and you're getting buff prohibition. So you don't want to be timing your buffs right before this because they're just going to get removed. So keep that in mind. Next up, on the second to last ability, again, more debuffs. This guy loves to put debuffs on you. He's giving you healing reduction and shield prohibition, and this again is another AoE, but this one's a little different. So this one is centered on one enemy, and he usually does this to whoever's in the top left. So if you have someone up here in the top left, it's going to center on them, and then these seeds will expand, or I guess they'll roll out from that target, and they'll hit everyone. Those are unavoidable. They're going to hit everyone, but those seeds do AoE damage. So if you have everyone spread out really far, those seeds are going to do less damage to your team overall because they're not going to be doing AoE damage to everyone. So the positioning you want to be using for this boss is as spread out as you can manage while maintaining like being able to heal everyone and buff everyone and keeping everyone in the radius of those skills. And then lastly, for the ultimate, this is the part of the boss. This is the mechanic of the boss that you really have to play around because he reduces your ultimate energy. So if you do not have a buff on any of your members, or anyone who doesn't have a buff on them, when he hits you with the ult is going to have their ultimate energy reduced. So this will turn all your timings will go out of whack and become irrelevant. So this is the mechanic you have to avoid. You want to make sure you have a buff up before the boss hits you with this ult, or else all the timings and planning you've done goes out the window and your guys are going to fall behind and not be able to maintain their timing. So that's like the most important thing. And also, for the 5 seconds after he ults, he gains fragility, which makes him take 200% more damage. So this is the period where you want to be doing all your damaging ults. All your burst damage should happen right after he ults. So there's two things that you really want to make sure happens. One is you're putting up a buff. So I have an example here. I have Quarian, and he's putting up this defense up buff on my team at exactly 30.5. This is a very important timing. So right now I have him timed for 15.5 because he can ult every 15 seconds, but his second ult will be at 30.5. That is right when the buff prohibition from this boss's third skill expires, so that you're able to put up buffs. And it's also right before he hits you with the first hit of his ult. So this is like the perfect timing to get the buffs up on your team and prevent you from losing ultimate energy. So you want to have a buffer on every single team that can buff your whole team at 30.5. That is like mandatory to maintaining your timings. So here example, we have Quarian doing that. We have Garius in here providing healing and the damage share, like I mentioned, with the Ancestral Protection. Since everything is AoE, he's going to be taking a portion of the damage everyone's taking and keeping them alive through that. And then we have Staff, of course. Garius is just not the same character without Staff, giving us massive shields, also protecting us. Now, the boss does shield prohibition, so you want to make sure you time your shields before this. Otherwise, they're just completely wasted. So the timings for this, you have to test it yourself, but I think it's around 27 or 26 seconds is the latest you can possibly do the shields. But you can also plan to just use them early and use them after the boss applies the defense penalty, because that's when you're going to be taking the most damage. So you can use your shields right here at like 12 seconds. It's really up to you on how you want to do it. As long as you have it at some point in time when you're not during the shield prohibition, you should be okay. So those are the boss mechanics. Now let's go over some teams. So the first one I tested, this is a budget wild team. People should have Erich and Tononon and Foley by Season 3. They should have them. Quarian's a rare. You should have them. Garius, hopefully you have him. I mean, he's OP. And then the only legendary artifacts I'm using here are Witch's Remains, which I hope you have by now. This just increases your damage. You could use Crown instead if you don't have Witches, but you're just going to get less damage. The Staff, because Garius, like I said, is not the same champion without it. And then Revatrix's Roots is one that you could have gotten from finishing Fae last season. But if you don't have this, you can use some more generic DPS artifact. On her music box could be good if you're timing it around Garius's shields. You could use, I don't know, Eyeball's not bad either, because again, a lot of the damage you're going to be doing to this boss is during that 5-second window when you're doing all your ults. So let me show you those timings. So basically, Quarian is doing 2 ults. We can get his cooldown down to 15 seconds. And to do that, we are using the Incense Burner. And then we're using the Puppeteer set to spread some defense around. Since his healing doesn't scale off of any stats, we just build him full defense. And then that defense is being spread around to everyone around him. That's making Garius also heal for more, since he scales only off defense for his healing. And we're using, the Moonlight. We're going to use this pretty much on any support that is healing or shielding. You want to use Moonlight on. And then we have Staff and just stacking defense. Now for our DPS, we're using Triple Wild. Wild is one of those teams that does better the more DPS you have. It's not very good with only 2, because you have people like Erich and Tononon that build up stacks on their passive the more wild procs that go off. And even Foley wants a lot of wild procs going off for her ultimate and her passive. So you just want more wild. So we're trying to fit 3 in. That's like the ideal number, because you need 2 supports to keep the team alive. And I decided to use Foley because she brings in aura. So this team has enough survivability with Corian and Garius that we don't actually need this defense aura. So we can get some more damage using this crit damage aura. Now, if you have someone like Felicity that you got from the Horn, for example, you can use her. I think she also has an aura. Yeah, she also has a crit damage aura, so you can use her in place of Foley. But basically, we're trying to keep it budget, so we're not doing that. So Erich here is our 5-hitter on the ulti. We're going to have him applying Witch's Remains. Foley is built full damage. We have her with the Silver Star Horseshoe with, like, I think I have 100% crit. Yeah, try to get 100% crit if you're going to use that artifact. And then Revatrix's Roots with exactly around 80% crit is all you need on Tononon because of her passive. So keep that in mind. Her passive gives 20% crit. And then for timings, we have Erich going right before the boss ults. So since his ult is delayed, his damage is delayed, this will put a stack of that damage reduction. This will give the boss a stack of that damage reduction right before he ults. And then when he ults, like I said, he removes those stacks. So he'll go back down to 0 stacks. So the damage from Erich is actually going to be hitting the boss when the boss is at 0 stacks, which is perfect. We want max damage. And then it's going to be applying Witch's Remains. Now that takes a few seconds. That's why we're delaying Tononon and Foley until the very last second. They're going at 34.5 and 34.6. The reason why we have Tononon after Foley is because Tononon gains damage when other people wild. So we want to make sure we give Foley a chance to wild before Tononon ults. That way Tononon can do more damage. Corian is ulting twice, 15.5 and again 30.5. The really important number there is 30.5. And then we just have Garius going at 19. I don't know why I have this number. I think it's after we take a lot of damage from getting hit after the defense penalty and we just want to heal back to full and get the shields. It also lasts, I think, 2 or 3 abilities. I'm not really sure here. Let me do one round and see exactly how this lines up. I think this is the very last second you can ult to get the shields before you get hit by this this third ability, I think. Let's see. So the third ability is a little delayed, so it's not exactly at 18 seconds. It has like a 1 second delay. Yep, we're doing shields here at 19. That's blocking damage from that. That's also blocking damage from this ability. So yeah, we have shields for that. And that's also before we get the shield prohibition preventing us from shielding. So that's the team. This team goes for 65, I think, was it? Yeah, 65 million. Remember to, manage your expectations because this is, again, not a boss that you're going to be getting 200 million on every team, especially if you're on a budget. But there are teams out there, like this one, for example, which I tested, did, I think, 200 million with 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. This team's insane. I mean, every Rook team is going to be crazy. This boss is a lot like Vortex. Single target damage is king here. So that's why I, for my budget teams, I chose Wild, Ice Blast, and Dauntless, because these are normally considered the best single target, kind of like Vortex teams. I know there's other options, but those are usually higher rarity. So this Rook team with legendary artifacts, using pretty much all legendary artifacts. We got the exclusive artifact and everything. This team's super overkill, 200 million with 3 minutes left. This team probably would have went for 500 million if the damage reduction didn't kick in at 200 million. So the boss takes 90% less damage after 200 million. So you really can't get much more. I think with the full 3 minutes and 30 seconds after 200 million, we only did like 10 or 20 million more with this team. So the goal with these teams, if you are a whale and you have a lot of legendaries and stuff, is to make the bare minimum team that hits 200 million and no more. Because then you're wasting power. You want to spread out your power between your 6 teams and try to get them all to 200 million if you can. All right, moving on to the next budget team. So here we have Ice Blast. We're using the classic, Girthin, Bledin setup for damage. And then we could actually fit another DPS in because Furbath and Surface do a good job of keeping us alive. So we put in the good old Nord, providing some extra ice crystals. We've got the attack speed gear on him with the Wine of the Dragon Blood. We have Revatrix on Girthin, building crit damage gloves and trying to get her to 80% crit. We've got this healing artifact that I think was last season's, or this season. I think, no, it was last season's completing the pillar. You got this. Very good artifact for healing, 25% more healing. This isn't really needed. I mean, you could use something else like Mirror or something, but we just had this. And then Crown of the Unclean to apply another defense penalty. So because of these gloves, increasing your damage by 35% when you have defense penalty on the boss, you want to be maximizing that uptime. So that's why we're using 2 defense penalty artifacts. It's very similar to Vortex, except instead of having 100% uptime. You have 20 seconds of uptime. Since the boss is a 30-second turn, you have 20%, so 66% uptime on those defense penalties if you're, alternating. So let me look at the timings here. So we have Furbath ulting to apply that crown at 14, but mainly we have him timed like this for the attack penalty. This is happening before we get the defense penalty hit and saving us from taking too much damage. Again, we have the buffs going up at 30.5. That's really important. Gerthin on auto since she has a quick ulti. I thought about getting some skill haste on her and getting her down to 15 seconds, and then we could like time her to ult at the right times twice per turn. But that's kind of hard to do with her gear set. There really isn't, unless you have some crazy skill haste on the runes, there isn't an easy way to get her down to 15. With Nord here, going at 31 after we apply Witch's Remains during that window when the boss is weakened. And we just have Bled in here at 30.5. Let me finish going over the gear. So again, yeah, pretty basic here. Just 80% crit, 80% crit. I think we try to go for 100% crit here, but it doesn't really matter. He's just there to apply a lot of, do a lot of auto attacks to give us more ice crystals. She's healing. We've got the Puppeteer set here to spread out some defense to, I guess the squishiest member on this team ends up being Bledin, because these are both melees, so they inherently have higher base HP. So she's giving extra defense to Bledin, and also Furbath, who's healing, scales off defense. So it's perfect for him. And then he's got the Ancestral set for that damage share. And then moving on, we've got our last team, Dauntless. A little worse here with this team. Only getting 46 million, but still pretty decent. This team also like only barely survives. The supports aren't as good as the previous two teams, but this team did make it the full 8 minutes. And we made it using, believe it or not, we made it using a pretty damaging aura. We used the attack speed aura instead of the HP aura, and we were still able to make it the full 8 minutes. So this team was pretty decent. 46 million. We've got, so these buffing ults, these can go off at 30 seconds, as long as they're up during that full 5 seconds when the boss is weakened. So we have Shalter ulting at 30. We have the buffs going up at 30.5 with Nathaniel. Now, Estella has gotten buffed a lot. She used to be really bad, but now she's actually a clutch healer. She basically heals the team back to full from like 20% HP. The whole team heals back to full. She's crazy. So she's a really good healer. She's doing pretty much all the healing here, since the healing over time buff that Nathaniel does ends up getting blocked or removed a lot of the times. And we've got Yagnats in here. He's interesting because he's a character with a 16-second ultimate. So with a bit of skill haste, we kind of have an unconventional set on him here. We're using the Mona Lisa set, actually, because that gives both accuracy and skill haste, which is both stats we want. We want to get his cooldown down to 15 seconds so we can ult twice per turn. And then we're using Witch's Remains on him, since he has a 3-hitting ultimate, to get 2 instances of Witch's Remains per turn. So that's 20 seconds of Witch's Remains per turn, which is really nice. And so yeah, the Mona Lisa set just gave us the stats we needed, skill haste and accuracy and a little healing, which it is not much, but it's a little. And then yeah, we're just building him for accuracy and damage. Estella, again, Puppeteer set, since she's here in the middle. She's giving defense to these two, giving defense to them. Also trying to get Enlightenment. When I used an Enlightenment body armor, she ended up dying, but I felt like I didn't actually need it. She was over healing, like she was healing everyone to full and then some. So we're choosing to go the defense route here with the defense body armor, and also on Nathaniel going a defense armor because he is taking the damage share with the Ancestral set, and we've got him built with Enlightenment. Now the way it works here with the shields is the boss puts up shield prohibition, but then sometimes Nathaniel cleanses it. So there's a 50-50. There's 2 debuffs going up on us, and he cleanses 1 debuff. Sometimes he cleanses it, and then we do get shields. Sometimes he doesn't, but that adds up in keeping us alive over the long run. Sometimes giving us shields, and that helps to make Estella's job a little easier at healing us back up. We're using Revitrix on Shaltar. He's our top DPS here. You could also use Violink, but that's like after testing last season, that's just straight up worse. Revitrix gives so much attack, and since derivative damage scales off attack, this ends up being better. And we're just building a max Enlightenment with this derivative damage set. And then we've got Shagrel over here with 100% crit rate and the Horseshoe, which is, I think, the best artifact. I tried out a crit damage glove setup with the Wine of Dragonblood, and it wasn't as good. So yeah, Silverstar Horseshoe going for maximum damage. He's right behind Shaltar. Both of them do incredible damage here. And then Yagnats is like way behind them because we have to build him this way. But yeah, attack speed aura helps out Dauntless a lot with the derivative procs, and Shagrel doing these passive procs, attacking twice. And yeah, this team gets 46 million. So there you go, guys. I hope this helps. This is the boss mechanics and a few budget teams. And then just keep in mind, if you've got better characters, legendaries, exclusives, artifacts, etc., that 200 million is very possible. Like, this team was super overkill. It's just not as easy as previous seasons to hit it. So good luck. Hope you guys can get 200 million on all your teams, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.